Welcome to Coding Today. We're going to work on a project that I call Drawing Squares. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to name the project here, and I'm going to call it Drawing Squares, so I can find it again later. And I think this is a version that I've done before. I've made other versions of this, so I'm going to call this V2. The point of this project is to create some buttons and to highlight the idea of user interface design. So user interface design means you are creating buttons that do things, and you need to have you need to give feedback to the user when the button is being clicked and things like that. So first, I'm going to create a button, and I'm going to choose a sprite from the library, and I'm going to choose things, and I'm going to choose this guy here, which is called button, and I'm going to say, all right, I've chosen this button. Then I'm going to drag the button here. And one thing I want to make sure of is that my button never, first I guess I want to say what this button is going to do. So this button is going to make more squares. So I probably need to say more or something like that on the button. So now I'm going to go ahead and look at its costume. And I'm going to put the word more on top of the button. Now, whenever you're working with an object, you get to choose whether it's in vector mode or bitmap mode. And vector mode is much easier to work with. So I'm going to go to vector mode, make sure it's on vector mode, and I'm going to select the text button, and I'm going to have my font be Helvetica. This is kind of dark blue, so I might actually make a white thing on top of it. I'm going to go here and click somewhere in this button and type the word more. Okay. Then I'm going to select the arrow, and I'm going to drag the more to the center of the button. So I've created a button that says more, and it's going to do something. And I'm going to, let's see what this costume looks like. I don't really like that other costume. So now I'm going to go ahead and delete this one, and I've got a button that says more. Now, I'm going to duplicate this costume. Or I'm going to duplicate this whole sprite, actually. The sprite doesn't do anything yet. It's just a button that says more. And so now I'm going to say I want to right mouse click on this, duplicate it, and now I have another button called more. But I don't want this one to say more. In fact, I want it to say something different. You can see which one I'm working with right there. I want this one to say clear. So I'm going to go back to my text button, double click on more, and type clear. And now I've got a clear button and a more button. So my buttons are in great shape. I'm going to go to scripts. So one thing I want to do is I want to line up my buttons. So I'm going to put this one right here. And I'm going to put this one right here. And I personally like having smaller buttons. So I'm going to go ahead and make them both a little bit smaller. So I'm going to go to looks while I'm on the more button. And I'm going to set size to 50%, which is going to make it half the size. If I click it once, it gets much smaller, obviously. Put it there. And if I go to the clear button and set size to 50% by clicking it once, click, this too gets small. Now, one thing I don't want to have happen is I don't want these buttons to ever move from a different location. Like I don't want the user to be able to drag the buttons to a new location, something like that. I want to make sure that they're always here on the screen. So I'm going to go to my More button, and my first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lock it in place. When this is clicked, forever, make sure that it's in its current location. And if I go to motion, I see this number, go to 209 minus 184. That's where it is right now. So for example, if I were to move this around, you could see this number changing. But I'm going to put it right back, 209, 183 now, and I'm going to put it there. So now the button is forever going to be in that location. And I'm going to do the same thing with the clear button too. I'm going to hit a control. When this thing is clicked, forever, go to motion 209, 154. All right, so I've got some code already, and I'm going to go ahead and run my code. So I'm going to hit boop, And the buttons don't do anything except that if I try to move them, they snap back to where they were supposed to be, which is actually kind of a useful thing. So they always go back to where they're supposed to be because of this code right there. All right. Now the next thing I want to do, this is where user interface design comes in. Notice that when you have something on a computer and you roll your mouse over it like this here, see how it gets a little bit gray over there? That's part of user interface design, which is the computer is showing you what you're currently pointing at. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and do two things for user interface design here. I'm going to put in this forever loop a sensing if touching mouse pointer. So I'm going to go here and get an if. If touching mouse pointer, then change it. I want to make it sort of transparent, if you will. So set, not change. Change would do something different. Set ghost effect to 50%. And otherwise, set ghost effect to 0. So now, if I put this in the forever loop, let's take a look at what happens with my more button. Look, see how it faded out? You can kind of see that I'm about to click on that button. That's kind of cool. Maybe 50% is too much. Maybe I just want 20%. Let's see, is that better? Oh yeah, that's better. I think 20% is actually better. Okay, so I've got a function here, and I mentioned a second ago, make sure you use set and not change. Let's take a look at what happens if I make it change ghost effect by 20%. Watch what happens here. See how it completely disappeared? Because it's changing it 20% at a time. Now you may want to do that sometimes, like if I change it 1% at a time, this actually is kind of fun. You can make it sort of disappear. But that's not really good user interface design. I don't want it to kind of constantly change as the thing is over. I just want it to change once. So instead of using change, I'm going to use set. Now this block of code, this if statement, is really, I want this on the other button too. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this by right mouse clicking on that. Oops, didn't mean to do that. I want to duplicate this whole thing. So I'm going to right mouse click on this, duplicate. Now I've got two of them. I'm going to put this one back where it was. And I'm going to drag this one and drop it onto my other button. And if I go here, I can see that it's actually there. And then I'm going to put it where it belongs. So now if I hit the key, they both do what I want in terms of hanging over them. All right, this ghost effect thing. Now the other thing that user interface design says is when you click on something, you should make it look like you clicked on it. So for example, if I click on this, oops. If I click on this cat, okay. When I clicked on the word file, it turned blue. There was a blue outline around it. Somehow, the computer lets you know when you are clicking on something. So what I want to do, I think, with this is I'm going to make it blink on and off a couple of times if I click on it. So I'm going to go back to my more button here. And I'm going to say, all right, if touching mouse pointer and mouse down. So if both of those things are true, that means you clicked on it. If touching mouse pointer and sensing mouse down, then I want to do something. All right. Well, what do I want to do? I want to blink twice. So I'm going to put a control in here, repeat 2 times, and I'm going to set ghost effect to 100%. That will make it disappear, right? Then I'm going to wait, let's say 100th of a second, 0.01. Then I'm going to set ghost effect to 0. Looks, set ghost effect to 0. All right. And actually, I probably don't need this in an if-else statement. I just need this in an if statement. So if I'm doing these two things, then repeat twice, and this is going to be like a blink. And I'm going to put that in there too. So let's see what happens now. And when I click on you, oh, did you see it? See how it's kind of blinking to show you that you actually snapped on it? So cool. All right, so I want this line of code to also be with the other button. So I'm going to take this out again, right mouse click on it, duplicate it. I didn't want to just duplicate that. I wanted to duplicate the entire if statement. No, it's not doing that. Wonder why. Let's see. Oh, actually, I don't need to hit duplicate. I can just drop it onto the button, and it will be over here. So now I'm going to put it back into the forever statement. I'm going to go back to this button and put it in the forever statement. All right, so now let's check out our program. Hopefully, they fade out when I'm over them, and they click, or they blink when I click on them. Now, they don't do anything. So what are these guys supposed to do? Well, what I want clear to do is I want clear to clear the entire screen. If there's anything drawn on the screen, I want it to clear the screen. And I also, well, let's focus on more first. So what I want more to do is I want more to create little guys that draw squares. So what are the little guys? Well, we can use cats, we can use something else. I personally like to use something else. I don't like to use all these little characters all the time. So I'm going to use some object like this ball, all right? And I'm going to say, okay, so here we go. We have this little ball, and I'm going to delete the cat now. I don't need the cat. So I'm going to right mouse click on the cat. That's weird. It's not letting me right mouse click on it. I don't know why it's not letting me right mouse click on it to delete this thing, because I want to delete it, edit. Okay, so the thing's not doing what I expect it to do right now, so I'm going to go ahead and hit refresh. Sometimes if the program isn't running the way you want it to run, then if you hit refresh, no! It lost all my code because I didn't save it. Wow, word to the wise, always save your work. So I'm going to go ahead and now recreate all this stuff super fast. I'm going to go here, I'm going to set to 50%. Oh my gosh, what a pain. Well, I'm going to stop the recording. I'm just going to recreate everything I had a second ago so you don't have to watch it all again. But wow, I just learned a big lesson, which is you need to save your work. Okay. So let me recreate everything, and then I will be back.